Today's video is a special one because I'm going to use fake names, but I'm going to walk through discussions that I have with current clients, so active, real people. I'm financial planner. My name is Taublieb, and I am here to help you become financially independent. So in today's episode, I'm going to call them John and Mary, and I'm just making that up, but these are real clients. So what I want to do is give you a sense of what does it even look like to work with a planner, but really, how do financial planners think about money, what makes them different, but also, how should you think about buying a house or investing? So I'm going to jump around a little bit, but it's because I want to give you a sense. So here's the important information to know. John and Mary, they make $150,000 per year, and they're doing a good job saving and they're doing a good job investing, but the work that they do, it takes a lot of time. And so it's not something that they want to manage on their own, and so they work with a professional to delegate that. Now, what they really want to do is get into a new house, and they don't know when they can do it. How do you get into a new house? How much home can I buy so that I'm not house rich and cash poor? What do I make sure I don't do? That's a huge thing when it's talking to a financial planner, because you don't want to make sure you buy this whole life policy or this other, not just policy, but this whole other investment. Maybe it's an annuity. It sounds really good on the outside, but it just might not make sense for you. Those products are not all bad, but I just like to give you a sense of these are the questions they had for me. So one of their questions, Ari, should I buy an annuity? What an annuity is it's an investment that you can put money towards, and it's going to just grow for you depending on the rate that it's being invested at, but there are a bunch of hidden fees that you often can't know about because it's just one of those fine print things. So they sent me their statement and said, Ari, my cousin is invested in an annuity. Shouldn't I get in one of those? We walked through it and we determined it doesn't make sense. Now, I can't get into the exact details of that, but what I can tell you is the investment was growing at 4 to 6% per year, which is just not enough because they wanted it to act like a Roth IRA. Now, when you take an annuity and annuitize it, what you're doing is you're creating your own pension. It sounds really good to guarantee $500 per month every month for the rest of your life, but that doesn't take into account inflation. And so that $500 sounds good up front, and then 30 years later, it doesn't make sense. So we talked about that, and it doesn't make sense. Then we talked about whole life insurance, and they said, Ari, I love the idea of having insurance, but also having my money grow for me. What we found out is that it didn't make sense in their scenario because they already had term life insurance. And the amount of insurance I often like to advise clients on is if something were to happen to you, is your spouse able to pay down the mortgage? Are they able to not worry? Maybe that not worrying means they don't have to save for retirement. Maybe that means buying more insurance. There's no perfect number, but what we found out is that they wanted just about $750,000 of coverage because that's what was going to allow them to sleep at night. And then their last question was, Ari, how are our investments doing? We went over performance. We went over how they're allocated. And they went, Ari, there's been some jitters in the market. Is that something I should be concerned about? And what we found out is sometimes they just need that little push, that little motivation, that little reminder of the way the market works, because it's not fun when COVID goes down and all of a sudden the money you work so hard for goes down 20, 30%. But they said, you know what? This is an opportunity to put in more dollars at discounted prices. And I was proud of them because when they first came to me, they were so scared of the market. And that's very natural. Most people say, hey, I don't know how it works. And it's ultimately intimidating. Isn't it safer to just have cash? Now they're sending me emails of, Ari, can we put more money in? And I have to push back on them and say, you're already doing a great job saving. You've already done your Roth IRAs for the year. You're under the income limit, which means you're able to contribute to a Roth IRA. Go spend more. And they're so confused, but then they start to talk about it amongst themselves on what they want to do more of, and we build a strategy. So you can see here, insurance, taxes, investments, they all build on one another. And the last thing they had a question on was that home piece. Ari, what is the amount of home we can buy? We don't want to put too much towards the home, and now we can't retire early. We don't want to put too much towards the home, and now we're sacrificing what we care about most today. So we were looking at $1 million home, and that $1 million home we were looking at, well, if they were able to save and invest, that's great, but does it make sense to save and invest? Now there's a difference there, and I wanted to point that out. If you were to save for a home, save $10,000 a year for 10 years, that's great, now you have $100,000. But if they want to be able to put $200,000 on the home, that means if they just save the $10,000 for 10 years, that's great. That's $100,000, but it's not going to get you there. If you were to save $20,000 for 10 years, Well, all of a sudden you've got $200,000, you've got a down payment of 20% on $1 million home, but is your income able to pick up the mortgage? So evaluate what's their rent versus the current home. And what we found going through that example is they said, I think I can save $20,000 per year and I would feel better not investing it. I like the idea of putting it towards a separate account called future home purchase. And yes, maybe I invest that $10,000 every single year for 10 years, or sorry, $20,000 every single year for 10 years, and I'd have $200,000. But if you invested that, yeah, they said, you know what? I know I can invest that. I know I might be able to get more return, and maybe it's not $200,000, but now at that point, it's $250 or it's $275 or it's $300 because the market's done really well. But they said, I will gladly accept less growth for the certainty that it will be there. And so that's something we worked through. Certain clients said, you know what, Ari, I want that money working for me. I don't want to just have it sit there for 10 years. Others say, you know what, Ari, I want it in a separate account. I want to know that it's going to be there. There's no right or wrong answer. So then what we found is they're currently paying rent of $2,000 per month. Not bad. And it's not bad or not good, but that's just what the number was. This new home would be $3,000 per month. And so they said, Ari, I don't know if I can make that big shift. And then what we ultimately found out is that income is likely going to rise based off of their careers. And so it's not that they can now save more, but they can have that home. That $2,000 of rent today is essentially going to be the equivalent of $3,000 to the mortgage in the future. And they really wanted a home. We walk through, does a home even make sense? Certain clients say, I want to rent forever, Ari, because that renting allows me to invest more and make more. And we talked about that. But what was most important to them was getting into that home. They wanted a backyard. They've got a little kid who's going to be a star basketball player, and that's what they cared about most. So today's video is to give you a sense of what it looks like when I work with people. That's what the discussions are. It's one of those things that it's nice to talk about because there's no right or wrong answer. It's ultimately talking about what you care about most, not just performance, not just taxes, not just tax law. That stuff can be dull sometimes. It's my job to know that. That way I can determine what's the right account for you and your goals. That's what it looks like when I work with people. John, Mary, very real people that I just spoke with, just used fake names for the purpose of this video. Thank you very much, and I'll see y'all next time.